Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Wolverine Madripoor Nights #1, and this comic came out on Wednesday the 7th of February 2024. So as of the making of this video, this is a new comic. It is out there on sale at the moment, and it is the cover here by Philip Tan and Sebastian Cheng. What I'm trying to figure out is whether this is just digitally colored from Philip Tan's pencils. Philip Tan does do pencils on paper, and he has worked with Sebastian Cheng before on Shang-Chi in particular is one that I recall. And it seems to me like what's happening here is we're getting digital coloring perhaps over Philip Tan's pencils, and also some digital effects such as the screen tone there on Black Widow's costume. Now, if you're looking at this cover and it seems familiar, that's because it is Tan's reimagining, an homage to the classic Jim Lee and Scott Williams cover to Uncanny X-Men 268. And what is happening here is that Claremont is revisiting what happened at the very end of this particular issue. So Uncanny X-Men 268 had a dual storyline. One was set in Madripoor in the late summer of 1941, featuring the first meeting of Captain America and Logan, Wolverine. And we've got that classic splash page and double page half spread by Jim Lee, Scott Williams, such classic art. We've got him going up against the hand there as well. And there's a review of this issue on my channel, which you should check out if you want to have your memory refreshed. And there we have it, the first meeting of Captain America and Logan back in 1941. Name's Logan. Welcome to Lowtown, Madripoor. So Claremont has revisited this setting. There was also, I should actually just open this up again to show you, there was a part of the story after this that was set in the present, 49 years later at the time, and that featured the Black Widow. And we had Psylocke and Jubilee accompanying Wolverine there to Madripoor again, and they were up against the Fenris twins in this particular story. So it switched back and forth between the present and 1941. Just tremendous art by Jim Lee in this particular issue. And as I said, Claremont is revisiting the storyline, but it's set in the present. So let's open this one. Oh, by the way, I just like the detail as well. It's a fun little detail, a couple of fun details from the cover. So we have the caption here. Now this is a bit too small really. I would have liked that a bit larger. So we see here on 268, Wolverine, Captain America, Black Widow together again for the first time. Captain America, Black Widow and Logan together again for the last time. And it's the 50th anniversary of the creation of Wolverine, going back to Incredible Hulk 180 and 181. And I like the corner box that we have the repetition of the corner box from issue 268 there, featuring a Jim Lee Wolverine. That's pretty cool. So there you go. But you know, something to let me know in the comments is, which of these covers do you prefer? Do you prefer the original Jim Lee and Scott Williams cover, or Philip Tan's reimagining of that cover? Let me know in the comments to this video. So let's get into the new comic. So the title here, Madripoor Nights, actually, I'll flip back to this one again. Where does it come from? It was the title of the story in 268. So the title of this particular story now is Blindsides Galore, or The Setup. And a little editor's note, this story takes place shortly after Uncanny X-Men 268. That is the present timeline of 268. Creative team, Chris Claremont writer, artist Edgar Salazar, not familiar with his work, color artist Carlos Lopez, letterer VC's Corey Petit, and the cover artist, as I said, Philip Tan, Sebastian Cheng. There's variant covers by John Bolton. That's interesting. I'd like to see that one. Another cover by someone, Carlos Gomez there, and Carlos Magno. I'm not familiar with those artists. And then you get a little kind of catch up there on the previous story from 268, but we don't need to go through that. I also like the detail that we have kind of images taken, plucked from 268 there as well. That's a nice little detail. So here is the opening page of the new comic Madripoor Nights. So we've got a first-person narration by Logan, and like that's of course classic Claremont device. Officially, I'm Canadian, but I've long considered Madripoor my home, he says. It's an island nation in Southeast Asia, became a big pirate enclave in lots of ways. That hasn't changed. It's just become more respectable. There's one city, rest of the island is mostly uncharted even from space. That's an interesting detail. City's composed of two core neighborhoods, Hightown and Lowtown. Hightown's where the official money lives and has the skyscrapers to prove it. Here they are. Lowtown, though, is where most folks feel the real deals get cut. One is flash, the other substance. Madripoor challenge is figuring out which is which. And then we have our little shots here of the key players. Wolverine, of course, Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, Jubilation Lee, Psylocke, Betsy Braddock. So let's continue. And this is a nice double page spread here. We have a nice anchor image of Wolverine, Jubilee, Psylocke and Natasha all dressed up. They're heading to a Swiss restaurant. And I just want to, by comparison, show you, let me just see, what's the name of this artist again? Edgar, is it Salazar? Let's see, Edgar Salazar, yeah. So you can see very clearly that he is quite an able artist, quite competent, but whose art do you prefer? And let's have a little comparison here between, make sure that's all on camera, Psylocke dressed up, Natasha dressed up, and then Jim Lee's version of that back in 1990. And remember, this is Jim Lee, only 4 years into his artistic career. Yeah, so those dresses, a little bit more eye-catching than the ones that Psylocke and Natasha are wearing in 2024, yes. So, back into the story, Logan continues. Thing about Hightown is that it has to keep growing. The Divine is the most magnificent luxury tower in the city, but not for much longer. Building next door, 2K, is going to stand better than Mile High. So this must be 2K here, and this is the Divine where Wolverine and the others are going for dinner. So Psylocke here says, I hate being played, especially by Fenris. So yeah, that is picking up from the end of 268. And Logan responds, you're the telepath, Psylocke. Can't you find them? In a city of millions? Consider it a challenge, says Natasha. And Wolverine out ahead in his dinner jacket says, ladies, chill. Jubilee, they're going to be a fight? No. Bets and I are teammates in the X-Men. Jubilee, even though she's a kid, saved my life. But Natasha Romanoff and I go back a long way. That forms a special kind of bond. And then we get flashbacks to the 1941 storyline in Uncanny X-Men 268. And we get flashbacks to the present day storyline in 268 as well. And of course, the editorial note there is detailed in classic Uncanny X-Men 268. So Wolverine here is thinking about the ambush in the present day storyline by the Hand, and he thinks here, question now is, was that ambush an accident, and where do we all go from here? So this is interesting Claremont revisiting the end of that storyline, and now we're going to get something fresh happening, and it's going to involve Captain America. So in 268, Cap was, we were looking at Cap only in 1941, but here he is in the present day, so we're going to have a team up between Wolverine and Cap in the present day. Got my answer, says Wolverine. So here we've got this bunch of hand ninjas tackling Captain America as he smashes through the glass window or ceiling of the restaurant in the Divine skyscraper building. So it's not too bad of an image. It's well drawn, as I was saying, but maybe this is unfair, but which do you prefer? This by Lee and Williams, or this by the new artist. You know, it's interesting to consider the differences there between them, but it's competent art from Salazar. And then we get, of course, a bit of a fight. So we've got a tumble going on there between Captain America and the Hand Ninjas. Wolverine says to himself in his first person narration, I'll say this about Captain America. This is interesting by Claremont. No dialogue, no narrative captions, just lets the art tell the story. So we go from here to here, Cap running up against the wall and somersaulting over and back down into the crowd of ninjas as Black Widow gets involved in the fight too, because of course they are teammates in the Avengers. Wolverine, back to his first person narration. Adversaries are Genin, baseline troops of an ancient guild of assassins called the Hand. They consider themselves the best in the world. I'm better. So we get a nice close-up here on Wolverine's face. He's wearing his patch disguise, of course, his patch identity from this period. Pops his claws. The ninjas there are ready to take him on. And he says in his first person narration, my healing factor is not working right. Again, that's a point of continuity back in 268 when Wolverine his healing factor was failing him. Truth is, I'm dying, he says, which for the Wolverine is supposed to be impossible. Reality like that makes me cranky, and trust me, you really won't like me when I'm cranky. Okay, that's pretty good. But again, you know, the art is competent, but look at the ninjas here, the Hand. They're just kind of standing around, whereas by comparison, in 268, when Jim Lee draws the Hand, look, they're always in a dynamic pose. This really is, you know, how to draw the Hand the Marvel way. It's that kind of Jack Kirby, John Buscema emphasis on dynamism. They're just standing around with their swords out. And I think that is something that the artist could have improved. Now, this is a decent enough anchor image of Wolverine popping his claws. And without the healing factor, optimum condition, the blood is streaming out of the holes in the back of his hand. So now we get a good fight here. Claremont hasn't kept us waiting for that. And we've got a focus here on this page on Captain America and Natasha going up against the Hand. And Natasha saying, I'm the last of the Romanovs, Captain. If history has taught me anything, it is how to not simply fight, but win. So we have her killing those Hand ninjas, but off panel there. Then Psylocke gets involved. And this is interesting from Claremont. These Genin aren't simply good at what they do. Psylocke thinks to herself, there are so many of them as well. Have to try using my telepathy to balance the scales. Bollocks. That is funny from Claremont. So, you know, a lot of Americans might not be familiar with this particular word, but in English, over here on the other side of the Atlantic, both in the UK and in Ireland, this is a mild curse word that indicates, you know, that something hasn't worked out quite. It's an exclamation of anger and in some cases like disappointment. But it's funny to see Psylocke thinking, and of course Claremont's putting it in because she is English, yes? They're immune to my power, she thinks. It's like they've no minds for me to control. I like that detail. That's Claremont really, you know, showing us that he knows who and what the Hand are. And those little details about their mystic nature is pretty cool. And it means that Psylocke's got a challenge here as she crashes through a window down into the main dining room. And a lot of detail here. So the artist's not scrimping on background detail. We've got all the diners getting up from their tables and the waiters there looking up as well. It's nicely done. And so we have the impact of Psylocke crashing into one of those tables, and Wolverine's narrative captions again. Name says it all. This place, hotel and restaurant both, is well and truly divine. Sold out every night. Folks come here for the best food in the world, not this. So Psylocke's getting ready to fight with the focused totality of her telepathic powers, her psychic knife, and she pushes it right into the head of this particular Hand ninja, and it doesn't work. Idiot. she exclaims to herself. My psychic blade can't harm people physically. It only makes them feel it. And genin, apparently, have no imagination. That's pretty funny and thoughtful from Claremont as well. And also note, it was me who had to say that it's the focused totality of her telepathic powers. Claremont deciding on this occasion not to include that particular Claremontism in this new issue. And so then she picks up 2 discarded swords from defeated ninja, and now she's got the 2 blades, one in either hand. I like that. That's pretty cool. But again, just look at the way that the ninja are coming towards her. They're just a little bit casual in their body language. Again, just missing that Jim Lee dynamism that comes from, you know, having read and absorbed the lessons of how to draw comics the Marvel way. So Jubilee gets involved at this time in her existence, only having been introduced in Uncanny X-Men 244. She doesn't have much control over her fireworks, so they're pretty piddly here. And then we get this anchor image of her here. I don't like the way that she's dressed. Obviously, it's supposed to be an updating of how she would dress in 2024 versus the way that she dressed back in 1990. But for me, it just looks a bit goofy. This looks goofy rather than the old way she dressed, which is kind of strange. In any case, she's going to get attacked by this ninja. She doesn't have any training yet in the Danger Room. She's not properly an X-Man. Her power gives up. She's out of gas. So is she for it? No. Snicked. And we see Wolverine's adamantium claws tearing through the belly from behind of this particular hand ninja. So that's a pretty cool sequence there. And again, reminding you of Jubilee in the very beginning of her appearances in Uncanny X-Men. So now we've got a great anchor image of the melee now in the dining room. Pretty cool. We've got Psylocke getting in here to defend Jubilee. Leave her defense to me, Logan. She says, "You've my word, Jubilee will be safe at my side." But Jubilee's got her powers back at this point. Maybe it's a little bit... whether it's about recharging or whether it's about her confidence is an interesting question. Like Wolvie always says, she says, we're a team. So Jubilee goes back into action. And here we are. We're about midpoint in the comic at this stage. I'm not going to go through the whole comic because it is a new one. It's on sale now. And I think it would be a bit unfair to reveal the whole comic to Claremont and the other creatives. But I'll just cover this page and the subsequent one and leave it at that. So Wolverine starts to cut loose, his adamantium claws cutting right through those swords. That's a nice little detail. He pulls his claws in and he throws one of these. He throws left-handed one of these ninjas towards Natasha. That's pretty cool. And she sends it over to Captain America. He uses his shield to knock that particular ninja into this crowd of them, and then Wolverine pops his claws again and he rips right through the whole lot of them together. That's a nice choreographed action sequence there from Claremont. So here we go. We get the reaction shots. Jubilee's grossed out. Natasha, far, far less than they deserve, she says. And Psylocke here, enjoying it. A part of me feels so angry, she thinks, that I'm not the one doing this. What is happening to me? And that is Claremont taking account of Psylocke's recent transformation by the Hand after she emerged from the Siege Perilous. And that's pretty cool. So I like the fact that in this comic, Claremont really has gone back to 268 and he is giving us a coherent, consistent follow-on from that issue. The characters are as they were in 268. So if you were a fan of that particular era of Claremont's comics, really, this is worth picking up. And then we've got Captain America's thoughts here. I've seen so many, too many moments like this. They may be necessary, but does that make them right? Thank heaven, I still feel a measure of revulsion. Another classic Claremont trope where you get action sequence, you get killing, but you always get moral reflection on it as well. It's not just gratuitous for the enjoyment of the reader. You get these four different reflections that have to do with the characters themselves in terms of how they see Wolverine killing all of those hand ninjas. And then back to Wolverine's first-person narration. Don't need Betsy's telepathy to hear what everyone's thinking. I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do best, it isn't very nice. So this is classic Claremont, and I'm going to end the review with this recommendation. If you are one of my subscribers or a new viewer to the channel, and you've come for my reviews of classic Claremont Uncanny X-Men comics, and you're the kind of person I sometimes get comments from people wondering whether there's anything worth buying in terms of the new comics on the stands today, in my view, this is exactly that kind of comic that you are looking for, and I do recommend it. And there's some nice scenes to come yet, including a very cool callback to this moment from 268 and the 1941 story, where Wolverine and Cap shake hands at the end. Appreciate the thought, Cap, when Captain America talks about building a potential team, but I work alone, don't need a sidekick. So we get a very cool callback to that moment at the end of this particular issue. So I'm going to flip to the end and show you the cover for the next issue by Philip Tan again and Sebastian Cheng, and a couple of familiar faces there from the original volume 1 of the Wolverine ongoing series, a cover by John Buscema. Yeah, pretty cool that. So Claremont calling back to his original run on these characters, and the characterization is consistent with how he wrote them back then, but he's also taken lessons from, you know, the decades since, in terms of maybe not overriding and putting too much dialogue and too many narrative captions down on the page. So this is a good solid read, and I thoroughly recommend it. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Wolverine Madripoor Nights #1. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.